Hello, vinyl community and music lovers and Frank Zappa fans. How's it going? It's Joe, and it's June 19th, 2020. And today I felt like making a video. I'm a vinyl records lover. Been a collector since I was a little boy. Vinyl's been in my life for so long. But I stopped buying vinyl probably like when I became a student, when I went to Berklee College of Music in 1988, because, when you're living from dormitory room to dormitory room to apartment to apartment and then city to city, when I moved to Los Angeles, and the amount of times that I've moved since I've lived in LA, it's just like, it's not even feasible to have a vinyl collection because it's so heavy and it's such a pain in the ass to lug around. But, when you are set and you've got like if you've got a house or a place to live and all that stuff, and you can afford to have a setup, a turntable, vinyl is still a preferred format for me, for sure. It's just such a great experience, and I always love it. And so I started buying vinyl again probably about 10 years ago. And a lot of that had to do with not only just because I love the format and I do, and I enjoy listening to music on vinyl, but also because being the vaultmeister for the Zappa Trust, it's in my best interest to keep up with the industry and what people like and what people don't like, and what are the things that people look for in vinyl these days. And I learned a lot about how vinyl is made, and I supervise all of the vinyl reissues that have come out with the Trust over the past, 11 years or whatever it's been. And so we take a lot of pride in making sure that the quality of that stuff is super high end and done the right way. So vinyl came back into my life, and I was enjoying, I've been enjoying it so much. I mean, if you've got the budget and the time, and I try not to go a little too crazy because it is a rabbit hole. I mean, you can find yourself buying a lot of vinyl, buying a lot of records, and the next thing you know, you're accumulating another massive collection that you get to put in boxes and take with you everywhere you go. But I spend a lot of time on the internet buying vinyl. I go to Discogs, and I go to Amazon, and I go to eBay mostly, and I'm always taking a look at used vinyl and new vinyl and stuff like that. And obviously vinyl prices these days are a lot more than what they used to be, that's for sure. But the quality of vinyl is better now. It takes a lot to make it. It's an expensive process, and when it's done right, it's absolutely worth the money that you spend on it. But I think that there are certain things that you look for if you're going to spend that kind of money on vinyl. Like, you want to know whether or not it's cut from an analog source or a digital source, or if there's anything special about the reissue or whatever, whether depending on what kind of pressing it is. And I started realizing that there were a lot of colored vinyl versions of classic records that have been making the rounds. And and for me, I started realizing that, man, they're so fun. If I'm going to buy, records again, I kind of want to buy the colored version, because it's so great. I mean, black vinyl, of course, sounds the best, and there's reasons for that. But, technology has improved so much with vinyl that colored vinyl sounds great. And the quality of the pressings are great. And so I found myself wanting to have fun with the stuff that I'm buying and get the colored versions. And I noticed a lot on these websites that I was buying vinyl on, that a lot of colored vinyl variants and these limited edition pressings were being done by a store in Massachusetts called Newbury Comics. Now, when I lived in Boston, Newbury Comics was right down the street and around the corner from where I lived, right on Newbury Street and Mass Ave in Back Bay. Back Bay, right where Berklee is, it was such a great little area. There was so many things there at that time in the late 80s, early 90s, that you didn't need to go anywhere. There was record stores and music stores and restaurants and convenience stores and a bar, and everything you wanted was right there, and you didn't have to go real far at all. And so I used to go to Newbury Comics all the time. It's such a great store, and still is. And Newbury Comics sells records and T-shirts and collectibles and comics and DVDs and media all over the place. It's such a great store, and nowadays it's not just a store; it's a chain. There's a lot of Newbury Comics stores around. There's a bunch in Massachusetts. There's some in Rhode Island. There's one in Connecticut. It's really expanded since those days, which is really great because it deserves it. It's a great store. But I noticed that these colored versions, these colored vinyl limited pressings, were being done by Newbury Comics, and I was like, wow, that's so great. Like, this is so cool that Newbury Comics is taking the time to pick these hand-picked classic records, and doing these limited edition runs. And it's so fun because the stuff they were, the titles that were catching my eye, I was like, wow, they did Elvis's first album, and they did X, Los Angeles, and the Stooges Funhouse, and Night of the Living Dead soundtrack, and Charlie Brown's Christmas album, and all these just great records, Rocky Horror Picture Show soundtrack, and the list goes on and on and on. They've chosen so many great things. And if you're a collector and if you love vinyl, it's just like, whoa, like there's only 500 of these made. I want one of these, And I started really getting lost in trying to track down some of these, because a lot of them are it's so limited that they're not available. And so, the collectability of this stuff you can get really caught up in it. But it's just so fun to see all these records coming out through Newbury Comics. And, Newbury Comics started all this stuff, and then you realize that other stores started to do it. Like, all of a sudden, you see HMV doing limited pressings and colored versions, and then you see Barnes & Noble and Urban Outfitters. And so it's of my opinion that Newbury Comics was, pretty much responsible for the colored vinyl limited pressing craze that kind of happened over the last 10 years maybe, or something like that. It's been I don't know exactly how long they've been doing it, but they've been doing it for a while, and it's still going strong. They continue to do it. If you go to their website now, you'll see all the exclusive vinyl that they offer, and it's still a lot of fun. So one day I thought to myself, man, I wonder if Newbury Comics would ever be interested in doing some Zappa titles, like some of the Zappa reissues that we've been doing. So because I was super excited about the idea of, like, wow, how cool would it be to see, like, colored limited pressings of the Zappa titles through Newbury Comics. It'd be so cool. So I emailed them through their website, and lo and behold, they got back in touch with me. I got an email back from a guy named Carl Mello. What's happening, Carl? Carl's a great guy. He's part of the team of Newbury Comics. And Carl and I had met before in the past, which I didn't know. So he knew who I was, and they were all for it. They were totally interested in doing some titles of the Zappa catalog, and I thought, oh my God, that's great. So we connected Newbury Comics with the Zappa Trust, and we worked out a plan. We needed to learn about the logistics of how it works. And then, of course, we had to get Universal involved, because Universal is our distributor for our stuff. And so it took many months of 2017 to get everybody on the same page and to actually make it become a reality. But in early 2018, it happened. It actually happened. We saw the launch of 3 titles happen through Newbury Comics, and I want to share with you what these titles are and what they look like. Obviously these editions are out of print now, but you'd be surprised if you go to eBay. You can actually find some of this stuff. It pops up every once in a while, and obviously they're not cheap. I mean, they weren't cheap when they came out. Now they're probably a lot more because they're out of print and collectible, but they're so worth it because they're so well done, and they're so much fun. So I want to show them off to you now. So the first one, now what happened was the guys at Newbury Comics, they sent the Trust a wish list, and they said, we would love to be able to do these certain titles, right? And it's no surprise that they wanted to do Overnight Sensation, Apostrophe, and Hot Rats. Those three records are, you know, so popular in the Zappa catalog. They sell well, and they're really like almost great entry points for anybody that's discovering Frank's music. And they're kind of like the quintessential records, you know. So they wanted to do those three. And those were the three that we ended up doing in our first launch of these editions. So Overnight Sensation was one of the first ones of the three. And if you look, their edition is orange inside clear vinyl, which was pretty cool looking. So I want to show you what that looks like. It's pretty rad. So there's side one. Now, it's important to note that these labels that you see are custom labels specifically created for these Newbury Comics limited editions. See the Newbury Comics logo face there on the bottom? So I was really happy that we were able to talk the Trust and Universal into doing these custom labels, because it makes them that much more special and that much more collectible, you know? So that's what the Overnight Sensation looks like. Now, I wanted to tell you that we normally do our pressing at Palace in Germany, which is one of the best pressing plants in the world. But Palace is known for their quality, but they don't really spend too much time on the gimmicky kind of colored vinyl world. Now, actually, that's changed. They've expanded their capabilities and their choices. But in 2018, or 2017 rather, you know, when we were working on all this stuff, they were, you know, kind of limited in the 180 gram weight limit. They could do more things with 140 gram and below, but when it came to 180, they were limited. And I wanted to make sure that Carl had choices. It wasn't limited in the kinds of choices that they could pick, because if you look and see what they've done with other titles, I mean, they've done some really, really cool looking stuff, and I wanted them to be able to do whatever they wanted. So we arranged to have the plates at Palace sent to a vendor that we chose to work with, and that vendor ended up being a middleman to a pressing plant, GZ Media. So it ended up, unbeknownst to me, that GZ Media was the pressing plant for these these first three titles that we did. So here's Apostrophe, and Yellow Snow in clear vinyl, pretty genius, right? So thematically, it's cool to see Overnight Sensation with the orange clear, and then you've got Apostrophe with the yellow clear, and love that label. Pretty cool. Such a cool look. Yellow and clear. It's such a wild look, but gotta love it. And you know, these are definitely 180 gram. These are solid, and we were lucky that the pressings on these two were good. And then there's Hot Rats. Hot Rats, their Newbury version was pink and purple splatter 180 gram vinyl. And this one is my favorite of the first three. It's just such a beautiful splatter. It looks so great. And I love the custom labels on this one. I just love it. Mike Mesker, who's part of our team at Zappa, he did such a wonderful job of designing these labels. Isn't that pretty? And there There you go. Whoops. Yeah. It's pretty great. And you know what's interesting about, these are all handmade. These are all hand pressed. So every single one has a different look to it. Like they're not all the same. Everyone's unique. So the splatter is going to be different on every copy. So yeah, so that's what that looks like. So much fun. So those were the first 3 titles. And then later on in the year, we had scheduled to do the vinyl reissues of Truncus Revenge and Bert Wienie Sandwich. And Newbury Comics kind of hopped on to the production run on those. And so we did a limited edition for those 2 titles later on in the year. So Truncus Revenge was a lime green pressing. And this time around, we stuck with Paulus. After the GZ media experience, we decided we're going to stick with Paulus because we love what they do, and we're just going to, pick colors that they can actually do in 180 gram and make it easy on ourselves. And, it still looks really great. So here's what Truncus Revenge looks like. Side A. It's beautiful. Side B. It's really, really fun. I love it. I'm so proud of these, It's just, I was so happy that these actually happened. And they're really well done. The sound quality of all these vinyl reissues are really great. The mastering is so well done on all of these things. So we always raise the bar when it comes to the vinyl reissues. So here's Bert Wienie Sandwich. Now, Bert Wienie Sandwich is the record that Billy Bob Thornton listened to on repeat when he was writing the screenplay to Sling Blade. He told me that. So I think this is one of his favorites. And of course, it's a great, great record. And their version is Silver Marble. So here's what this looks like. So fun. Silver Marble. Love that label. It's really great. Got a really nice solid pressing here. 180 gram is an audiophile weight. And a lot of people wonder why 180 gram is such a big deal. And the reason for that is when you do 180 gram, the chances of warping is less because there's more vinyl, it's very solid, and also too, there's no dish warp as well. It's very like a straight surface. So when the needle is riding on a 180 gram vinyl, as it's going closer and closer to the label, it's tracking better in the groove because it's a more solid foundation, And so because of that, the sound quality is better. So that's why 180 gram is kind of like the preferred audiophile weight. Some people say that's bullshit, but hey, this is the things that I learned. And then last but not least, in 2019, when we did the 50th anniversary of Mother Mania, Newbury Comics did a version of it. And this is what they chose to do. They did double circles. Oh, by the way, I forgot to say that those 2 colors for Bert Wienie Sandwich and Truncus was actually picked by Amit. They sent us a bunch of choices and said, hey, we could do this or this or this. What do you want to do? And Amit, chimed in and he had the final word. Now, on the first 3, it was Carl and team that chose those colors. But Amit was in on this one. Now, this variant was chosen by Newbury Comics. Pink and purple double circles with a black splatter. And this one was pressed at Furnace MFG in Virginia, even though the sticker says Palos. But the thing is that It's Palace, by the way. Palace. I always say Palace, but it's Palace. But Palace is one of the many record pressing plants that is underneath the Furnace MFG umbrella. There's other ones too. So it gets kind of confusing sometimes. And also, Furnace has just, in the last couple of years, they went in production in the States. In Virginia, they have their own pressing plant. And so we started doing a couple projects with them in their new Virginia pressing plant. We did the Guitar World According to Frank Zappa Record Store Day version. And we did this one. So here's what the Mother Mania Newbury Comics edition looks like. Pretty rad. Unfortunately, the label isn't as crisp and clear as it should be. That was a little bit of a slight disappointment. But we'll hopefully improve that next time. Here's the back. So these custom labels really make it for me. I just love integrating album graphics as part of the overall look of the vinyl. It just makes it that much more special, I think. And that's really rad. I mean, the black splatter, again, is unique. Everyone is different. So, looks pretty great. Sounds pretty great, too. So those are the ones that Newbury Comics has done over the past few years. And really proud of them. A lot of fun. I love them. And I wanted to show them off to you. And maybe you'll find them out there still. And also maybe there'll be some more Newbury Comics in the future, versions of stuff. There's obviously so many titles that they could do, including you know, upcoming vinyl pressings that we're slated for in the upcoming years. So it's exciting. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you enjoyed checking these things out with me. And I'll see you on the next one. Everybody take care. We'll see you later.